If Anakin Skywalker had ascended to the position of Emperor of the Galactic Empire, retaining his limbs and avoiding the mutilation that solidified his transformation into Darth Vader, the galaxy would have faced a starkly different fate. Anakin's power, unrestrained by the physical limitations of his injuries, would make him a figure of unrivaled strength and cunning. This scenario unravels a fascinating tapestry of possibilities, shaped by his unbridled ambition, emotional volatility, and connection to the Force. Without the catastrophic duel on Mustafar that cost him his limbs, Anakin's physical and metaphysical prowess would remain at their zenith. He would have been the perfect embodiment of the Sith ideal, a warrior who commands both immense martial skill and the devastating power of the dark side. His survival intact would leave him less reliant on the restrictive suit that became synonymous with Darth Vader, allowing him greater freedom of movement and expression. This mobility would amplify his combat effectiveness and preserve his connection to the Force in ways unimaginable for the encumbered Vader we know. Anakin as Emperor would rule with an iron fist, blending the tactical brilliance of a Jedi general with the cruelty of a Sith Lord. He would harness his Force sensitivity to command not just armies but entire systems through fear and awe. His physical presence, unmarred and majestic, would serve as a symbol of invincibility. The galaxy's perception of him would be markedly different from the fearsome, yet grotesque, visage of Darth Vader. Instead of an intimidating enforcer working in the shadow of the Emperor, Anakin would embody the Empire's absolute power, uniting political control and military dominance in a single figure. His decisions, while brutal, might reflect his original desire for order and peace, albeit corrupted by the dark side. Anakin's turn to the dark side stemmed from a place of desperation, love, and fear. These emotions would still drive him, influencing his policies and interactions. His attachment to Padme Amidala and his obsession with preventing loss might lead him to use the Empire's resources in ways that mix altruism with oppression. For instance, systems might find themselves compelled to conform to Anakin's vision of peace, facing destruction if they resisted. His regime might focus on preventing chaos but at the cost of individuality and freedom. Under Anakin's rule, the Jedi Order's eradication would be swifter and more absolute. Free from his injuries and the rage-fueled recklessness they introduced, Anakin would methodically hunt down his former comrades. As a warrior still in his prime, his unmatched skill with a lightsaber and mastery of the Force would make him an unstoppable adversary for any Jedi who dared to oppose him. The Purge would not merely scatter the Jedi but annihilate their legacy. Temples, artifacts, and knowledge would be systematically erased to ensure no threat could ever challenge his rule. Anakin's leadership style would likely evolve into a paradoxical mix of benevolence and tyranny. His time as a Jedi, combined with his experiences during the Clone Wars, would provide him with an understanding of diplomacy and the needs of the common people. However, his Sith mindset would prioritize strength, submission, and the crushing of dissent. Entire planets might find themselves beneficiaries of grand projects, improved infrastructure, bolstered economies, and heightened security, but only if they adhered strictly to imperial edicts. Resistance would be met with overwhelming force, as Anakin's belief in his divine right to rule would brook no opposition. In this alternate timeline, the Rebel Alliance's formation would face immense challenges. Anakin's ability to foresee and manipulate events through the Force, combined with his physical resilience, would make him a nearly insurmountable opponent. Rebel leaders like Mon Mothma and Bail Organa might find their plans unraveling before they even began. Anakin's deep understanding of Republic and Jedi tactics would give him a strategic edge, ensuring that dissent never coalesced into a significant threat. Furthermore, Anakin's retention of his limbs might allow him to maintain relationships that were impossible for Darth Vader. For instance, his connection to Luke and Leia, should their existence come to light, might unfold differently. Without the suit's dehumanizing influence, Anakin might view his children as extensions of his legacy rather than pawns or enemies. While still rooted in the dark side, his love for his family could introduce complex dynamics into his rule, possibly leading to power struggles or redemption arcs influenced by the very ideals he sought to destroy. In terms of the galaxy's overall trajectory, technological and scientific advancements might occur at an accelerated pace. Anakin's inventive mind and fascination with technology, evident from his youth as a pod racer and mechanic, could drive innovation within the Empire. These advancements might serve both his military ambitions and his desire to control and improve the galaxy. For instance, the construction of the Death Star could happen more efficiently, but its purpose might be expanded to include not only destruction but also symbols of imperial unity, blending fear with a veneer of benevolence. However, the dark side's corrosive influence cannot be understated. As time progressed, Anakin's power and ambition would likely spiral into paranoia and megalomania. The very emotions that led him down the Sith path, his fear of loss, his obsession with control, would continue to dominate his psyche. Even as Emperor, Anakin might find himself haunted by the specters of betrayal, fueling increasingly oppressive measures to maintain his authority. The galaxy's cultural and spiritual identity would be another victim of Anakin's reign. The eradication of the Jedi Order would create a void in the Force, disrupting the balance and stifling spiritual diversity. The Sith's dogma, enforced through propaganda and fear, would reshape societal values, prioritizing loyalty and obedience over individuality and free thought. Traditions and cultures that did not align with Anakin's vision of order might be eradicated or assimilated, further homogenizing the galaxy under his rule. Yet, amidst this tyranny, there might be moments of vulnerability, as Anakin's humanity remained intact. Unlike Darth Vader, whose injuries and suit symbolized his complete submission to the dark side, an unscathed Anakin would retain remnants of the man he once was. These vestiges of compassion and idealism could create cracks in his otherwise impenetrable facade, leading to internal conflicts that would influence his decisions and relationships. Anakin as Emperor, uninjured and in his prime, represents a ruler of unparalleled power and complexity. The galaxy under his rule would be a place of stark contrasts. Awe-inspiring technological advancements paired with soul-crushing oppression, fleeting moments of peace overshadowed by perpetual fear, and a leader whose vision for unity was tainted by the very darkness that granted him the strength to pursue it. As Anakin's reign persisted, his methods of governance and the impact of his unbridled power would further shape the galaxy in profound ways. His grip on the galaxy would tighten as he solidified his position as the ultimate authority, blending the political savvy of Palpatine with his own unmatched martial capabilities and strategic brilliance. Anakin, unrestrained by the physical limitations of the Vader we know, would create an empire that bore his mark in every facet. The empire under Anakin would likely become even more centralized and efficient. His ability to inspire both fear and respect would ensure that his subordinates operated with heightened diligence. Unlike Palpatine, who manipulated from the shadows, Anakin's leadership would be direct and hands-on. His presence alone, as a powerful and commanding figure, would galvanize his forces. Officers in the Imperial Navy and Army would view their emperor not as a distant and enigmatic overlord but as a warrior king who led by example. This direct approach might result in a more disciplined and formidable military. Anakin's experience as a battlefield commander during the Clone Wars, coupled with his intact physical prowess, would allow him to personally oversee campaigns and strategies. The galaxy's outer rim territories, often neglected or treated as unruly by the Republic, would likely fall swiftly under his control. His pragmatic yet brutal strategies would leave little room for prolonged resistance. Entire star systems would capitulate under the sheer might of the Imperial war machine. Anakin's mastery of the Force, enhanced by his lack of injuries, would play a crucial role in his continued dominance. Without the limitations imposed by the cybernetic enhancements of Vader, his connection to the Force would remain pure and unimpeded. This would make him not only a military leader but also a spiritual figure, projecting an almost divine aura. The dark side would amplify his already immense power, allowing him to manipulate events on a galactic scale. He could foresee threats, crush dissent before it materialized, and even influence the minds of those who served him, ensuring loyalty through both fear and awe. The role of the Sith philosophy in Anakin's empire would also evolve under his unique leadership. Unlike Palpatine, who maintained the rule of two and worked largely in secret, Anakin might choose to redefine the Sith Order. He could adopt a more inclusive approach, training a cadre of dark side warriors to serve as his enforcers, creating a new breed of Sith-like operatives loyal solely to him. These agents, handpicked and molded by Anakin himself, would serve as both protectors of the Empire and extensions of his will. Anakin's rule would also redefine the perception of power in the galaxy. The Jedi were once seen as the protectors of peace and justice, but under Anakin, the galaxy would view strength and control as the ultimate virtues. This cultural shift would alter the societal fabric of the galaxy, as individuals and systems sought to emulate the Emperor's ideals. Martial prowess, loyalty, and obedience would become the cornerstones of success within the Empire. On Coruscant, the political hub of the galaxy, Anakin's rule would leave an indelible mark. The planet would likely be transformed into a symbol of imperial strength and unity. Massive statues and monuments honoring the Emperor's victories would dominate the skyline, while the Senate, reduced to a mere advisory body, would serve as a puppet institution, legitimizing Anakin's decrees. The former Jedi Temple, now a stark monument to the Sith, would serve as a reminder of the Jedi Order's failure and the Emperor's triumph. Despite his authoritarian rule, there would still be those who resisted Anakin's empire. The seeds of rebellion might not be entirely extinguished, even in the face of his overwhelming power. However, the Rebel Alliance, if it managed to exist at all, would face an even more harrowing struggle. Anakin's foresight and strategic acumen would make it nearly impossible for opposition forces to organize. Any insurgency would be crushed swiftly and mercilessly, as Anakin's personal involvement in quelling resistance would ensure no loose ends remained. In this alternate reality, Anakin's personal relationships might also take unexpected turns. His connection to Padme Amidala, assuming she survived his turn to the dark side, would be a source of both strength and potential conflict. Padme's unwavering belief in democracy and justice might create a tension that Anakin could neither ignore nor resolve easily. Her influence could act as a tether to his former self, introducing a layer of vulnerability to his otherwise unassailable rule. Additionally, the revelation of Luke and Leia's existence would present a unique challenge. Without the disfigurement and psychological degradation associated with Vader's injuries, Anakin might approach fatherhood differently. He could view his children as heirs to his empire, training them in the ways of the Force to ensure his legacy endured. This dynamic could result in a power struggle, as Luke and Leia might inherit their mother's ideals and seek to dismantle the oppressive regime their father built. As the years passed, the dark side's influence would take a toll on Anakin. The very emotions that drove him to seize power, his fear of loss, his need for control, would continue to dominate his psyche. Paranoia and mistrust might creep into his mind, leading him to suspect betrayal even among his closest allies. This internal conflict could manifest in increasingly erratic decisions, destabilizing the Empire despite its outward strength. The galaxy itself, under Anakin's rule, would become a place of contrasts. On one hand, the Empire would bring order and stability, eradicating the chaos and corruption that plagued the Republic. On the other hand, this stability would come at the cost of freedom and individuality. Entire species and cultures might be suppressed or eradicated in the name of unity. The Force, too, would suffer an imbalance, as the dark side's dominance would stifle the light, plunging the galaxy into spiritual and moral decay. Anakin as Emperor, unscarred and physically intact, would be a ruler unlike any the galaxy had ever known. His unparalleled power, combined with his personal ambition and the dark side's influence, would create an empire that was both awe-inspiring and terrifying. The galaxy under his reign would bear the mark of a man who sought to impose his vision of peace through absolute control, leaving an indelible legacy shaped by both greatness and tragedy.